Alice's adventures in Wonderland represents the child's struggle to survive in the confusing world of adults. To understand our adult world, Alice has to overcome the open-mindedness that is characteristic for children. So root of Wonderland is reality, but we deform and deconstruct it to some other shape, so it would be easier for us to understand it. In the case of Alice, it's perception through child's eye. But our goal is to do it from the computational side of view in a digital world. Wonderland is not actually real, but it's a way of representing reality, which depends on perception. Starting point. How do we enter the Wonderland? First question that comes to mind when you start, how does the Wonderland look? That's a good question, but it's too soon to tell. First, you need to find a way of entering it. And how do you enter any space? You find an entrance. The same thing here, if you want to enter the Wonderland, you need to find a rabbit hole. Second question is, how does a rabbit hole look? That's a good question too. Let's think. If it's an entrance, then it's a transitional space for sure. Now we need to find this transitional space in our physical world. What could it be? So I started looking for it in the architectural department building. What rabbit hole requires? Entrance. Transitional space. Space? Yes, it's a space for sure. But there are a lot of spaces here. What kind of space are we looking for? The one that can provide transition. But transitions could be different. Should it be only physical transition? If yes, then it's just a door. But if it's not only physical, then what? Mood maybe? What affects mood? When we talk about human beings, they have feelings. Feelings create mood, and what creates feelings? Perception of world around. In our case, it's a perception of transitional space. Now we know what to look for, transitional space that affects perception and mood. Where can we find it in a building? Main entrance? It provides transition from outside to inside. Good, but we need more. We need space that creates as much change as a perception as possible. Vertical circulation spaces. Staircase is what we look for. But which one of them? The one that doesn't only create vertical movement, but changes type of space. From big public one to more secure and private one. I think it's the stairs to Dean's floor. Finally, staircase to Dean's floor is our rabbit hole. The type of space changes, perception change. Vertical movement, perception change. Every step is a new feeling, perception change. Wonderland in a digital world. What happens when we enter the Wonderland? How do we understand it? Once we get inside of Wonderland, it is getting more interesting. Don't forget that it's a digital world, so it's totally different from our physical world. First problem, our body can't enter it. We are not in our usual physical world body anymore, so we can't feel and be in a space the same way as we usually do. Now we have become a Wonderlander in a digital world. Second problem, if it's not a physical world, then how does it work? How do we understand it? Rules is what can help us to understand the digital world. And digital world is actually consists from rules by itself, because there is no other way for us to understand it. Now we know that rules rule the digital world, and it's all interlinked. The Wonderlander and the Wonderland, perception of Wonderlander affects how Wonderland works and looks. Rules are all about relations. It contains such information as, what is this? What characteristics of that makes it look like this? What happens when that intersects this? What happens when Wonderlander interact with that? Etc. As you remember, our rabbit hole is a staircase to Dean's floor. So we start from entering the Wonderland. Yes, this is our rabbit hole, and whole Wonderland too at the same time. You can't yet understand it. A later Wonderlander would create a Wonderland out of it by using rules of this digital world. Didn't you get lost yet? I'll explain it step by step. Wonderlander enters Wonderland. There is no left, right, up, bottom as we got used to in physical world. But there are vectors in digital world, so we can create vertical movement. When Wonderlander enters Wonderland, space affects his perception. And his perception affects space too at the same time. When WL enters Wonderland, scale of space makes his feelings sharp and focused, which makes him perceptive as a tall tunnel. WL continues to get deeper into it. He doesn't focus on height that much anymore, as he gets used to it. WL starts to sense the depth of space now. The volumes of walls that surrounds WL are getting bigger. That represents the texture of it. Spherical surface around is a compilation of outside forces such as light, wind, and temperature. And it starts to intersect with volumes of space and its walls. WL gets deeper in Wonderland, and it's getting more familiar, so he starts to focus on his feeling more. As I told before, Wonderland and perception of WL are interlinked, so when outer forces are intersecting with space more, that creates more feelings, which WL perceives as new volume that appear in space. Now, when you understand how digital world works, and WL is floating somewhere in the middle of the Wonderland, you can see the beauty of it. Simplicity of its concept and its complex look are coming along, and it gives us opportunity to perceive space in a new way, unknown for us before. When WL's travel through Wonderland is coming close to its end, space is getting compressed, and WL's integration with Wonderland reaches its peak. His perception of space is no more changing. That is how we can understand he reached its final point. Now he caught the true appearance of Wonderland.